let me say, a word in defense of reason in dialogue with faith.
Because faith is that proof. Faith unites us to that substance.
But reason, in order to realize its full potential, needs the horizons revealed by and truths contained in the faith. And not just any faith, but the Catholic faith.
When you compare Vatican II to Vatican I, one thing stands out. It is the Catholic faith. Back in 1870, the marriage of faith and reason, that the incarnation of the eternal Word made possible, was precisely what the great teaching of that council was focusing on. And as you consider the documents of Vatican II, the good news of the incarnation, of the Paschal mystery, is certainly updated, but not in any way changed in substance. However, there is one notable contrast when you look at the documents of Vatican I and compare them to the documents of Vatican II, and that is the emphasis on evangelization. Vatican II used the term gospel evangelium only once, and then only to refer to the four Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. It never used the term evangelize, evangelizing, evangelization. In contrast, Vatican II mentions gospel 157 times, evangelize 18 times, and evangelization 31 times. So cognates of the Latin evangelium occur approximately 206 times in these 16 documents. Now, you'll recall that Vatican I was suspended because of the invasion of Rome and the Vatican. Vatican II then was really the continuation and the completion of what had begun. So even still, I want to emphasize the continuity, the consistency of Vatican I and Vatican II. But when we consider what the Holy Spirit led the bishops to emphasize in the evangelization, we can see the great need that emerged in the 50s and the 60s. Becoming Pope in the middle of Vatican II, Pope Paul VI, formerly known as Cardinal Montini, clarified his selection of the name Paul. There had not been a pope named Paul for centuries. He made it clear that it was his desire to pattern his papal ministry after the apostle to the Gentiles, which he proceeded to implement even before Vatican II concluded in 1965 by going to the Holy Land and to India in 1964. He proceeded to make 15 apostolic journeys to various nations over the course of the next 6 years. Now, of course, all of that is forgotten and overshadowed because of what Blessed John Paul did. But as a matter of historical fact, no pope before Paul VI had ever made any apostolic journeys to other continents. Shortly after Vatican II was over in 1965, he changed the name of the Congregation of the Propaganda Fidei, the propagation of the faith, to the Congregation for the Evangelization of Peoples. When he was getting older and running out of steam and unable to make these apostolic journeys to other continents and nations, he proceeded to devote himself to the preparation for a synod on evangelization held in 74 in order to promulgate what proved to be the most influential document of his ministry that came out the next year, Evangelii Nunciandi on evangelization in the modern world. Just 3 years before he was called home to heaven, he stated the thesis of this particular document from the outset, and it was the cumulative and climactic statement of years of ministry going back to the middle of Vatican II. He said, and I quote, "Evangelization is in fact the grace and vocation most proper to the Church, her deepest identity. She exists in order to evangelize, to be the channel of the gift of God's grace, to reconcile sinners with God, and to perpetuate Christ's sacrifice in the Mass, which is the memorial of his death and glorious resurrection." Unquote. Note how the Pope identified the Church's mission to evangelize with the Eucharistic sacrifice, the Paschal mystery, which for us is at the heart of the Catholic gospel. But as I said, these amazing accomplishments were eclipsed because of what Blessed John Paul proceeded to accomplish. From 1978 until 2005, he made well over 100 apostolic journeys, clocking in nearly 1 million miles, but basically picking up the theme that had been left off from Vatican II and Pope Paul VI. The term new evangelization was actually not found anywhere in the documents of Vatican II, nor employed by Pope Paul VI. It was utilized for the very first time when John Paul returned to his own homeland of Poland. In June of 1979, on the 9th, when he had returned to his own diocese of Krakow to speak to the factory families gathered at Nowa Huta, where he knew after the boot heels of Nazism and communism, these factory families had been oppressed and brought to the point of spiritual exhaustion. He used this meeting as the occasion to emphasize what he identified, diagnosed as the deepest need for his own countrymen, and that is a new evangelization. But he didn't employ that phrase again for another 4 years. It wasn't until he came back to America, addressing American bishops at Port-au-Prince, Haiti, in 1983, he announced that the new evangelization was not just a diagnostic need that would be addressed by the church, it would be the highest priority and long-term mission that would fulfill the rest of his own ministry.